A series of high-profile swattings come to high-profile members of the right-wing movement. So we'll be talking about what's happening there, what this is. We'll talk a little bit about what happened to the left-wing side as well, possibly, and how this is all wrong. And some of the names on this list might surprise you, so we'll go over some of that, where this goes and what happens with that. In other news, groups of pro-Palestinian protesters chant in front of several sites in Midtown in New York, but also go in front of Biden admin officials' houses. So we'll talk about that, what that means for the movement, and where we go with that. Ballot access rocks both sides of the aisle as we talk about what is happening now with Trump's allies, with Chris Christie, with Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson as well. So I guess it's not just Trump in Colorado, so we'll go over some of that, what's happening there, and where we go with that. That's actually going to be the major crux of our program today. And Matt Gaetz demands an investigation into Delta Airlines for apparently shipping migrants across the country without papers. It is going to be all this and more. So grab some friends, get some people in here, get some food, and we will see you on the other side of the break. And should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot in days of auld lang syne, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I think somebody needs to go do a welfare check on DJ Cutman to see if everything's okay there, because both of his music channels are down right now. I was looking for them because obviously the Christmas season is over. So I was going to take the Christmas music off and go back to our regular video game study lounge music because it's copyright free and it's not there. And I'm kind of sad about that. And those of you who are on the audio platform or watching the replay of this will never know, but I did have a muted mic moment in the cold open. I will edit that back out. So again, what goes back to YouTube? I mean, if you follow back on Twitch and see the VOD there, they don't do uploads, they just do the live. So you might be able to see it there, but yes, on YouTube, I do go in and private out the original stream because just in case there's like a drop frame or something, I'd rather have. I'm recording this simultaneously as I'm streaming this, so I'll put I reload the recording back up onto YouTube, and well, those first couple minutes are probably going to go away from this, but we've got a lot to go over here today on this Christmas holiday, and the insomnia did not help, but we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. The swattings, which it looks like the Mogwai brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene's swatting as well, but they got Basobiak, they got Sticks, they got a Representative Brandon Williams, which I'm not familiar with him, and I mean, it's always wrong. I mean, I heard something about Sisson got swatted too, and you know, a lot of people on the right might celebrate that, but no, that's wrong too. That's attempted murder, no matter who it is, it's on the receiving end, but we'll be talking about that. A lot of stuff about ballot access today, because it's not just the Donald at this point. Chris Christie's off a couple ballots. Marianne Williamson is fighting for ballot access. Dean Phillips, nobody even knows that he's running right now, but we'll be talking about that and what's happening with that. John Schneider is under Secret Service investigation. We'll be going over that because, well, basically he did what Kathy Griffin did, but he's not liberal enough to do it. So we're going to get right down into it. And Yeah, we'll go for the full 2 hours and probably a little bit more. I got some things I like and things that I hate. The Christmas edition, so a lot to do over here in Contemporary. Let's get down into it and let's get started. Let's get my face off the screen so we don't see double of me, and let's go. All right, get the live chat up. Of course, you are always welcome to live chat. Tell me what it is that you think about what's going on in the news and what's going on elsewhere here. So let's get into it and let's get started. We're going to start with the Associated Press because our lead story today is swatting. Swatting, of course. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene targeted by failed Christmas swatting attempt. The Associated Press's Hannah Shanebaum reporting on this one. Republican U.S. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican in the loosest sense of the word, of course, was the target of a swatting attempt at her Georgia residence on Christmas morning, the Congresswoman and local police said, marking the latest instance of somebody calling in a fake emergency to draw armed officers or SWAT teams to her home. And nope, that's not the latest incident anymore. Fallout series trailer drop? Did it? I think that actually... That was a few weeks ago. I still haven't seen the trailer, but that was a few weeks ago. But yes, I'm very interested in that. The Rome Police Department quickly verified that the call was a hoax and did not send officers to the house, department spokesperson Kelly Madden said. And yeah, we're seeing a little bit more of that coming out here too, as this is becoming more prominent, of course. I was just swatted. This is like the 8th time on Christmas with my family there. My local police are the greatest, in all caps, and shouldn't have to deal with this, Greene wrote in a post on X, formerly Twitter. A man in New York called the Georgia suicide hotline just before 1100 hours Monday, claiming that he had shot his girlfriend at Greene's home and was going to kill himself next, Madden said. The call was quickly transferred to police when suicide hotline responders recognized the Georgia Congresswoman's address. And that's going to be, it's going to be a thing no matter what. And I did not have a chance to do so between work and here today, but that is going to be either this week or a weekend project where I'm going to, because I haven't done that since I moved. I did that in my my last place, but I'm all the way across the state at this point. But I'm going to go down to the local precinct, the town police, and just go sit down and talk to them and say, hey, this is what I do. This is my address. If somebody calls in something and it's not me at this address, then it's probably crap. Don't come in with guns drawn. I don't want to have a standoff with you guys. Just plain and simple. Because, and it's one of those things too. And I applaud the police departments for being more vigilant about this at this point. From recognizing the addresses and knowing where it is that they're going and checking in, because this has been... What did Tim pull? And of course with Tim, you got to take it with a grain of salt no matter what, but what did he get hit like 45 times where they tried to swat the same address over and over and over and over again? At some point, you're going to cry wolf and like nobody's going to believe you anymore. The department said it contacted Greene's private security detail to confirm she was safe and that there was no emergency at her residence. The call was then determined to be a swatting attempt, so the police response was canceled en route, Madden explained. We determined before our personnel could get to the location that there was no emergency and there was no reason to respond, she said. Her security detail had it all under control, and there actually was nothing going on. The Congresswoman, who represents the cities of Rome, Dalton, and Calhoun in northwest Georgia, spent her first term stripped of committee assignments by the former House Democrat. Yeah, we know that. Over racist comments, which is a lie, by the way. She was stripped of her committee assignments because in the midst of her campaign, which nobody seemed to notice while she was campaigning, well, she put pictures up of the squad and shot them with an AR-15. That's a threat. No, they were going to strip her anyway. And with Marjorie Taylor Greene, as usual, I've always considered her to be play acting. I don't think she's as conservative as she wants people to believe that she is. I don't think that... I don't think that she is as America First as she is. I think that she's playing a character. I've always thought that. Because she does the quiet part out loud too well. But regardless, I mean, no matter what happens, you should be safe in your own home. You should be. Dial this back just a touch. Just a sec. Using a different music service, so the volume mix is a little bit different than what it was. Yeah, that looks a little bit better in my monitor. Alright, anyway. Yeah, and she wasn't the only one. I think she was the highest profile one, like the one that the most people across the nation would know. Unless it's somebody that's super hardcore into politics. I mean, if you ask some leftoid who Posobiec is, their eyes are going to glaze over. Hell, I'm not even 100% sure who he is. I just know that he puts out a lot of news. And he breaks a lot of news. And he's on X all the time. More on Marjorie Taylor Greene. MTG says she was swatted on a Christmas day with her family the 8th time from Ryan King. And I wanted to put this up there because they also report a little bit on the Posobiec one. Swatting is a harassment tactic in which pranksters report a faux emergency to law enforcement to dispatch officers to a victim's address. Many conservatives have fallen victim to swatting. Activist Jack Posobiec claimed his parents were swatted on Saturday. So we've got the X for that. In August of 2022, someone called police to Green's house using a computer-generated voice to claim that someone there had been shot. The incident appeared to be related to anger over Green's position on transgender Utes' rights. The Utes! I'm telling you! In a subsequent post on Monday, Green revealed that she received threats last week from a man who wanted to fight her. This is a quotation, YouTube. Do not ban me. Let me quote this out here. And I quote, "Fight me, big mouth. I'll fucking smash your brains out on a curb. Have a nice time looking over your shoulders, shitbag." The individual allegedly messaged her on December 21st, which is probably one of the mildest messages that she's got. I'm sure that, I mean, especially if you go through the DMs that are out there, there are probably rape threats, there are probably death threats, there are probably stalk threats. I mean, you're in the high profile, it happens that way sometimes. Mogwai says Marjorie Taylor Greene is for Marjorie Taylor Greene. If Satan comes to Georgia looking for souls, to steal, she'd ask him for his vote. Yeah, but you gotta question the judgment of somebody, an ethereal being with many lifetimes of magic and practice and talent at his disposal, who lost his fiddle contest to some hick playing a violin on a stump. Where's the real judgment there? The man then claimed he was being recruited by the FBI. That I might actually believe, I'm not going to lie. Greene further alleged that when she went to the Capitol Police with the messages, and that the man has yet to be arrested. Capitol Police sent her an email noting the individual's responses to inquiries about the threats. The outright absurdity of this email response and the fact that they have not arrested this guy is shocking. Thankfully, I'm a gun owner. I'll never stop fighting for what is right, and I will always put America first, no matter what or who attacks me. So, that is the Marjorie Taylor Greene with a touch on the Posobiec swatting. This is the X in question. My parents were just swatted. Everyone is fine. Law enforcement are fully involved in tracking down the perpetrator. Posobiec goes on to say, they told police that I had shot my parents and was threatening to shoot my family. In further news on that, the Hexenhammer himself, Tarl Warwick, Alright everyone, so my home was just swatted earlier. Coincidentally, the day I made my video on the subject. Thanks to the local and state police for calling my mother beforehand. Simply doing a basic search and not hauling off and bashing down the door. Also, thank you for recording the call. It'll be helpful when I sue the perpetrator. Which, Mike says, strange how you never hear about leftists getting swatted, which I answered back to that one and pointed out. Didn't Sisson just get swatted recently? Which I believe one of the Krappenstein brothers brought that up. I might be wrong about that. There's an equal chance that I am completely wrong about that. But I think Sisson just got hit with that too, not that long ago. And Hogg too. I remember when Hogg got swatted, because he was actually, I think, one of the first high-profile ones to get swatted. I don't think that this went straight to the right-wingers. I think that they hit him first. Although, let's be fair, this is David Hogg. He might have looked out the window of his palatial estate and saw a black and white car, might not have even been a cop car, and said, "Oh my God, the SWAT team is here! The right-wingers are out to kill me!" I could see that coming from David Hogg. I could. And a person who I actually don't know who this is, New York 22, former sub-commander, trained nuclear engineer, and member of the House Science and Transport GOP and Education and Workforce Committee. So he's a New York rep for the GOP, so probably somewhere upstate most likely. Our home was swatted this afternoon thanks to the deputies and troopers who contacted me before arriving. They left with homemade cookies and spiced nuts. Merry Christmas, everybody. Now, first thing I want to say is this is a very small channel, thankfully. I'd like to be a higher profile because I'd like to make money off of this. But I also look at some of this happening here, and I don't think I have a high enough profile for any of these people to come back and try to find what my address is. But still, I do feel the need that if I am going to continue to talk into this golden microphone, that I should stop by the local police department and say, hey, again, this is what I do. I don't expect there to ever be a problem, but this is what I do. This is what happens. And I hope and pray that we never ever have to go through this. But I live alone, so if somebody's claiming that I went out and blew the brains of somebody else who lives here out, I'm the only one who lives here. So there's that aspect of things. Just don't come out with guns blazing. But we're seeing a lot of this too. Now, when I look at something like this, I do agree with especially one of the people who has been swatted on this. This should be an attempted murder charge, because when these people are coming in, when they get the call that somebody's gone nuts with a gun, they're gearing up on the way and getting ready to go throw a tear gas grenade and bust the door down. Now, I've told this story numerous times, of course. I will not name the town that I grew up in, because it's small enough that you guys can dox me from it. I'm not going to say the town. But I grew up in a town of about 300-ish people. And there was a SWAT team response. One of the neighbors, one of the kids was about my age. And this was in the late 90s. One of the kids about my age, or between my age and my sister's age. So he's between the two of us. And then he had a younger brother too. Somebody else from town came by and said, oh, so-and-so's dad just went nuts with a shotgun. And we'll look down, because it's a small enough town that you can actually pretty much look through the houses, and you look over and see, and the SWAT team's getting ready to gear up and go and everything else. And there was a baseball tournament that day, so we actually left because we had to go participate in that, both me and my sister. So we went to the baseball tournament. We came out. The SWAT team was still out there holding the house at hostage. They were just showing up when we had to leave. The SWAT team was still out there, guns drawn at the house, yelling at the person inside. And they finally, it was shortly after we got back from the baseball tournament, that they threw the tear gas grenade and stormed the house. Because I remember being in town when it happened. But they threw the tear gas grenade and they went in, guns blazing, and they found my friend's dad with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And when the coroner came by, they noted the time of death was about 20 minutes before the SWAT team arrived. They sat and held a house with a dead guy for 6 hours. Let's see. The Mogwai says, swatting knows no color. The cops with their evil guns are coming for me. Mama Hog, protect me! Nice. A Chicago family by the name of Griswold was swatted years ago. That probably was sometime in the 80s, if I remember correctly. They even went to the neighbor's home, where they reported to have heard the wife ask her husband, Todd, why the carpet was wet. I know, because of Griswold, that is a National Lampoon's Vacation reference. I've only seen half of Christmas Vacation and about half of Vegas Vacation. And little bits and pieces of regular Vacation, so I can't identify which one it is. But I know because of the Griswold and the Chicago family, that is a National Lampoon's reference. I do know that. Boulder Vaughn apparently got swatted for a bonfire in his backyard. That's interesting. If you want to share some details about that, as much as you can, obviously, without giving yourself away. I never ask anybody to dox themselves in the chat. Christmas Vacation. I should watch that movie at some point. I should watch all those movies at some point. But regardless, swatting, I mean, these people are under stress. They're under duress already. They're ready to come in and see the worst, to get shot at, to have their own lives threatened. Their survival instinct is kicking in at this point. And of course, when these people keep making these SWATs and not conservatives, again, leaving Sisson and Hogg aside for a second, what's one thing that's supposed to be a conservative value always? Well, if them cops kick in that door, then I'm going to start shooting. Which that's the hope, is that the cops kick in the door and then somebody reaches over, starts shooting. And then we get the big shootout where that person dies. The point is to get the person killed. So it should carry an attempted murder charge. And it is wrong no matter who happens to. Do not go out and swat Sisson. Do not go out and swat Hogg. What's the other insufferable bastard's name? I can't think of it. The other one that sits and screams about fossil fuels in the front seat of his V8 Audi. Oh, what the fuck is his name? I can't remember. Don't swat any of these people, because that's wrong. You can, especially if you're empowered by what you see here on Contemporary, you have the power to disprove them without making a threat against their life. You watch Contemporary, you're smarter than the average conservative. But it is going to keep happening. And yeah, thank God these cops are wise to this now, to look to this and say, hey, you know, we need to check on this first, because if we go in here guns blazing, then we might take an innocent life. Oh, UBI is trending. Alright, we're going to sit this over here because I'm going to figure out why this is trending. Maybe, if I can click on the entire link. I'll do a little bit of that off camera. So there's your swatting news for the day. Let's move on. Let's talk about something else. There, wasn't that fun? Let's try something else. Eliza just watched Christmas Vacation for the first time last week, and I married Eliza on the 22nd. Mazel tov! A wedding. I will not lie to you. Your wife has my favorite girl's name. A name that I have intended to, if I ever had a daughter, to name my daughter. So, but still, absolute mazel tov. We like weddings around here. I'd like to have a wedding at some point. I don't know if it's ever going to happen because I'm turning 40 next year, but I'd like it for it to happen at some point. Mogwai says North Charleston, South Carolina SWAT team watched a home a few years ago. When they went in, no one was in the house. That's the other thing, too, is I have to wonder if some of these, like, we happen to get the points with these last few swattings where the people were actually home. What happens if they throw a SWAT raid on somebody while that person's out at the mall? If anybody even goes to a mall anymore, or on a hike, or at work? Do they just watch the empty house? I thought you were talking about Greta until you said he, him. Well, the jury's still out on that one. Vong says, I got swatted once. I was eating lunch one day in the high school, and I made a somewhat out of bounds, but nonetheless correct joke. That hand didn't actually make contact with my face, and she was quite cute, and I was still in high school, so I let it pass. Her hand, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit different than what we're talking about here, though. Besides, you went to Catholic school. I'm sure that you've been swatted across the knuckles by a ruler more than once, too. Alright, let's talk about the pro-Palestinian protests. Colin Rugg with the video today. Breaking. Hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters are wreaking havoc in New York City in what appears to be a war on Christmas. Some chanted Christmas is canceled here as they reportedly threw fake blood on Alright, we're going to fix this for the recording and for the audio platform. As they reportedly threw fake blood on a nativity scene. Told you we were going to get that one. Others sparred with the NYPD, which triggered a level 3 mobilization call as noted by Ross Alerts. Long live the Intifada, shouted some as they called for a rebellion or an uprising. Let's watch. I will give them credit for not using hey hey, ho ho, thing I don't like has to go, hey hey. I'm sure that was strategically cut right at that point because they didn't want to have that G word on X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's read about what happened in Midtown. I had to rearrange a couple of these here, looks like. Alright, from ABC 7 Eyewitness. Several arrested after pro-Palestinian protesters crowd Midtown on Christmas Day. A pro-Palestinian demonstration on Christmas Day led to several arrests. 6 people were arrested as part of a protest of hundreds of marching through Midtown chanting, "Christmas is canceled here." I feel like I have to quote Boris Karloff at this point. Because we have to sit here and think to themselves that these people are probably sitting here as well with Christmas going and thinking, it came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And maybe, the Grinch thought, Christmas doesn't come from the store. Maybe, he thought, Christmas means a little bit more. Yeah, a dude in a Santa outfit with green fur already tried to cancel Christmas. And it didn't work. What the fuck do you think you guys are gonna do? Police say some of the protesters clashed with officers near Grand Central Terminal and Union Square, leading to 6 arrests for menacing officer, graffiti, and disorderly conduct. The protesters started on 6th Avenue around 1400 hours and circled the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, which is surrounded by barricades to prevent this exact kind of behavior, by the way. Police kept protesters on the outskirts of the tree before they headed to Grand Central Terminal and Union Square. Several carried a "No Joy in Genocide" nativity scene on their shoulders, splattered in fake blood. Many waved Palestinian flags. Of the 6 arrested, 1 was charged with menacing an officer, 1 was issued a criminal court summons for graffiti, and 4 others were issued desk appearance tickets for disorderly conduct. None of which, by the way, are going to get paid, just so you know. I don't even go to New York City, and I know that that's not going to happen. It was one of a series of protests timed to Christmas. Organizers posted a call for action online as Christmas services in Bethlehem were suspended because of the war, which is as sad as it is because, I mean, if you take the book of Luke seriously, that's kind of where this all started. So you'd hate to see that it gets canceled in literal Bethlehem, but you'll also have to keep your people safe too. Mayor Eric Adams said the city expects the same type of attempt to disrupt New Year's Eve festivities. Oh, you know that it is, by the way. We're going to use technology a lot this year, he said Tuesday. There's always a serious concern around safety on New Year's Eve. Not where I live. Because there's a large number of people. Everyone looks for events like this if they want to do bad things. Yeah, the FBI is going to put a shutdown to that in a hurry because that will disseminate the last little bit of support the progressive left has in the Democrat Party in the minds of the American people. And Joe Biden is desperately trying to bridge that gap right now. And he cannot afford to lose the progressive vote. While he is in favor of a New Yorker's right to protest, Adams says he does not agree with some of the methods. Yeah. That's called being a government official and understanding what keeps your people safe. I don't believe people should be able to take over streets. I don't believe people should be able to take over our bridges. I just don't believe that you can run a city this complex where people can just do whatever they want, he said, after his entire tenure of people in his city doing literally whatever they want, by the way. All you need is a small pocket of protesters like you saw yesterday that can disrupt a peaceful protest, he added. Yeah, that's how the BLM riots that you all praised happened. Because a lot of those were peaceful protests. But there were FBI agents in those crowds who knew that they needed to see unrest under a Republican presidency. And by the way, before we start getting major riots coming off of this, the FBI will be in and shutting this down. And there will be almost no news coverage of the FBI coming in and shutting this down. Because as much as these people are against Biden and they think that they have the right to protest against the Democrat regime, they cannot have major riots under a Democrat. That's all strategy, by the way. Can you take over a bridge if you're looking for a Big Mac? Asking for a friend in New Jersey. I don't know if I know the reference to that one. I could go for a Big Mac right about now. I might do that after stream. I've been really good about having all my meals in home. Which is why you're actually starting to see a little bit of trim coming up here. And I'm noticing it in my pants too, by the way. But man, without the special sauce, because I can't eat that. I can't eat mayonnaise-based sauces. But man, does that sound good. Oh, it's a Chris Christie joke. I kind of figured you were going to go with Chris Christie on that. But I wasn't sure enough to say yes on that. The Big Mac part threw me off. Video posted on Citizen App showed protesters marching along 5th Avenue with flags and signage. Now, just like I said last week when we were doing things that I hate about the protests in Germany, the problem that I have with them blocking the street is that emergency vehicles use the street. And of course, I'm also an ultra-capitalist. And commerce is also performed on those streets. Two things that I don't think should ever be blocked, but one is more important to me than the other. The commerce, obviously. No, emergency vehicles need to have a right of way. And people like this don't believe that. So if you're blocking emergency vehicles and somebody dies of a heart attack in the ambulance that got blocked, you should be held liable. You and your group and everybody who was in the street should be held 100% liable for that. I understand that, especially with a uprising like this. And this wasn't the only one, too. I didn't get it up on the stack, but I know that a bunch of people stopped just in front of exit 2 on the O'Hare interchange. And I don't know how in God's name they did, because that's a blind corner right before that. Like, I understand once they were out there why the traffic was stopping, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to be taking the initial steps into the interstate, at that particular juncture where exit 2A is, you're taking your life into your own hands. Because in the early morning traffic, somebody's coming around that curve at 90 miles an hour and not looking. I've been on the O'Hare interchange. I can't stand driving there. We'll be doing some Gaza stuff later on here too, but we've got the protests. But it wasn't just in New York. In an interesting turn of events, by the way, pro-Palestinian protesters chanted in front of Biden admin officials' homes on Christmas Day. Again, I'm going to put this out here. These are people that I don't like. But still, don't protest in front of people's homes. They will eventually go into a public building. Go there. If you trespass on their yards and they shoot you, in many of the places that they live, they have castle doctrine and have the right to do so. Either that or their private security does. Dude, Latin is one of those things that I actually never learned, so you might have to... Mogwai, can you Google Translate that? Alright, anyway, this is from Stephanie Price. The sounds of not-so-friendly carolers were heard singing on Christmas morning as dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered outside the respective Virginia and Washington, D.C. homes of Lloyd Austin and Jake Sullivan. Sullivan and Austin are two of President Biden's top foreign affairs advisors. The groups could be seen outside the officials' homes early Christmas morning as a large police presence also moved in. Yeah, I bet you it did. They didn't dare do it when they were doing the same thing out of Supreme Court Justice's house because they might make the wrong decision on abortion. But DC cops in Virginia outside of Democrats' houses? No. That shit's going to get shut down in a hurry. Sorry, I only know the English version because that's the only one I've ever sung. Austin, Austin, rise and shine. No sleep during genocide. Protesters were heard shouting in one of the several clips shared by the far-left organization, the People's Forum, which is opposed to Israel's war against the Hamas terrorists. The organization also called on their supporters to show up to All Out for Palestine. Christmas is canceled. Protests in New York City on Christmas Day and added to bring candles, rubble, and materials for the nativity scene. Other groups also took to social media to speak out about the Christmas Day protests in D.C. Pro-Palestinian agitators show up to Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's home and harass him, as well as his entire neighborhood. This Christmas morning, the nonpartisan Stop Anti-Semitism group wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, nonpartisan, they say, "We're not sure who needs to hear this, but harassing a 4-star general who has served his country his entire career will not free Palestine." But again, you same people had no problem with this whatsoever when they were walking outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house and gathering out there. In fact, a lot of you didn't even have a problem when somebody was caught there with a literal gun. You mooks. And I still think that was in bad taste to go protest outside their houses. There are your pro-Palestinian protests. Let's talk about what I actually initially thought that this entire show was going to be. Ballot access! And we're going to start with the Trump ballot access, starting with CBS News out of Colorado. Colorado Republican Party threatens to ignore the presidential primary after making candidates pay thousands of dollars for access to the ballots. Missing the entire point here, by the way. But it's CBS, what do you expect? After making the presidential candidates pay up to $40,000 to participate in the Colorado Republican presidential primary, the state GOP is now threatening to ignore the results of the primary if former President Trump isn't on the ballot. It's a private company, they can do what they want. And by the way, the Colorado Republican Party is not a governmental agency. They're adjacent to the governmental agencies, but they are a private, I think, 401c3. They're a nonprofit, I know that. They might be taxed under a different setting, but the Colorado Supreme Court ruled illegally this week that Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6th without a jury trial under the 14th Amendment is ineligible to run for office, even though there's a counter to that in the 14th Amendment. The implications of the GOP's decision are significant. The presidential primary determines how delegates are awarded at the national convention, where the candidate with the most delegates from each state becomes the party's nominee. Colorado Republican Party Chair Dave Williams says, if the leading GOP candidate isn't on the ballot, state Republicans will award delegates at caucuses instead. We're trying to make the best choice out of a bad situation. And of course, CBS is coming out here saying, They're going against their own people. They're making people pay a bunch of money for nothing. Oh my God! The horror! The horror! Whereas I actually would say to Dave Williams that, yeah, that probably is the best out of a bad situation. Now, I understand this is where some of your funding comes from to do things like print ballots and things like that, but I do think that if you're not going to have a ballot primary, you kind of do need to turn that money back in. You need to return that to the candidates. They paid for access to have their names printed on the ballots and have you print up these ballots. That is kind of on you. I do agree with the point that CBS is trying to make, although not in as much of a demonic sense as what they're trying to make it into. Williams says he would prefer to use the results of the primary, but he says the Colorado Supreme Court has left him no choice, which is a fair assessment. When you have unelected judges who are appointed by our opposition party dictating who we may nominate and who we may potentially vote on, we cannot allow that to stand, he said. The Colorado Secretary of State's office says if Williams follows through, he will likely end up in court, but he may win. He absolutely is going to win. It's a private company. State law says political parties shall use the results of the elections to allocate national delegate votes in accordance with the party's rules. The fact is, it's a private party and they have the right to nominate the way that they want to nominate, said former Deputy Secretary of State Suzanne Tahiri. You guys should see how the LP nominates, by the way. They get all of their sycophantic followers to come back out and talk about who they want to see as the nominee for the entire year before the election year. And then I think it's, anybody in the LP can remind me on this one, I think it's in July or August of the year. No, it's in June. I remember because Elaine and I started working together in June, and it was right after the nomination. So in June of the year of the election, the committee comes together and they go through and they look through all the tweets of all the people that were out on social media and all the petitions of all the people out there who said who they wanted, and then they go pick somebody that nobody's ever heard of to be their nominee. But she says moving to a caucus may upset some of the Republican candidates. The state party required every presidential candidate to pay up to $40,000 for access to the ballot. And they had to go on social media and say that they were excited about it. I'm embarrassed every time I see it on X, somebody announcing their excitement, which is really just something that they're being required to say to get on the ballot, said to Harry, who's a member of the Colorado Republican Party Central Committee. Yeah, that is actually kind of cringe, I'm not going to lie. But what redress does a candidate have is it to get their $40,000 back? That's almost not even worth going to court for. Well, again, I would expect the Colorado GOP to give the $40,000 back if you're not going to have a ballot, if you're going to have a caucus. And then the candidate then turn around and use that money to bolster their caucus standings. I know that reference. I know TV references, it's just movies I don't do. Alright, let's catch up over here real quick. Going back to the O'Hare protesters, the Moquai says after a certain number of people, a vehicle will stall out. That's dark. Apparently that's lyrics to O Come All Ye Faithful, but again, I don't know Latin. I'm from a very small town. I'm sure if I actually grew up in a bigger city, I'd probably know Latin. Mogwai says, I'm Southern. I don't even speak English well. Be faithful, joyfully triumphant. Come, come to Bethlehem. See the birth King of the angels. Come, let us adore. Come adore the Lord. See, that I understand. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumph. I'm way off key because I'm hearing a completely different set of notes in my ears right now. It's the most common English translation. It's imprecise and figurative translation by nature, since it has to fit the pre-existing notes and rhythms of the song, and rhyme and meter too. Mogwai says, welcome to Colorado, where the primary is made up and the votes don't matter. All the best renditions of the song are in Latin, though, so I don't know why you would even bother with the translation. Well, because I don't know Latin. I sent the Latin because I wanted the keys of watching you try to pronounce it. Oh. That version is in the hymnal. I think it's in the Lutheran hymnal, too, actually. I would have to look. Alright. Back to Colorado. Williams said the money would give candidates access to the caucus instead. Well, what you should be doing is giving that back to them so they can reserve their tables and start putting their advertising out. Not that it's going to matter by the time Colorado comes around, but regardless. He says he simply wants to give every candidate the chance to compete fairly, even as some members of the state's GOP Central Committee try to force a vote next month to endorse Trump and ask the other candidates to withdraw. And see, again, you shouldn't be doing that either. Now, when some of these people see the writing on the wall, I think they're going to withdraw naturally, but no. And this is a big gripe that I have with the LP, and this is especially a gripe I have with the Democrat Party. And yes, there are some inklings of the GOP doing this behind the scenes too. It should ultimately be the people's choice who your nominee is. The Democrats will use the superdelegate system to make sure that the candidate that they want gets in. The LP just doesn't care what their people want, and they'll put up somebody who needs advertising for a book that person's writing. But with the Republican Party, it should be up to the people. It should be. It clearly isn't, because they want to go back and force the people out. Whereas again, they should, by the time Colorado is here, Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy should be out by that point. 100%. Although it would not be outside of the realm of possibility to see Vivek actually make it in Iowa. I'm not going to lie. And I want to tell you right off the bat, if you're a Republican candidate, even if I don't like you, which is all of them, and your party tells you that you should drop out, no, tell them to fuck themselves. If you don't want to drop out. But if you're looking at the writing in the wall and saying, hey, I got 0.1% in the last round of primaries that we did, maybe I'm not as popular as I think that I am. I mean, you should start thinking about how you're spending your money, obviously, but it shouldn't be on the party to tell you to drop out. No, screw that. Let's see, what else do we have for this? In California, archived from the USA Today, will Trump be kept off California's ballot? State leader calls on election officials to explore options. Riley Beggin reporting for the USA Today. California Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis asked the state's top election official Wednesday to explore every legal option to remove former President Trump from the Golden State's primary ballot. The request comes a day after the Colorado Supreme Court ruled Trump doesn't qualify for the primary ballot. The court argued that Trump participated in a selfie fest culminating in the people being led into the Capitol and taking pictures. And he is therefore ineligible for office under the terms of the 14th Amendment, again, without due process of law. The decision, which will almost certainly be considered by the Supreme Court, could have a major implication for the 2024 election and thrust the courts into the center of a particularly fraught election season. This is the cringe part of this one. California must stand on the right side of history. Are you fucking kidding me? California is obligated to determine if Trump is ineligible for the California ballot for the same reasons described in the Colorado case, Kounalakis wrote in a letter addressed to the Secretary of State Shirley Weber, which would be funny because under the auspices of the 14th Amendment, you would have to indict and then try him for insurrection in the state of California to get a conviction, which is possible. I don't know where you get a complaining witness from, but that's actually possible to do. You can indict a ham sandwich, especially in California, against a Republican. The California primary is scheduled for March 5th, 2024, and the list of approved candidates is due next week. The state is overwhelmingly Democratic, with nearly 47% of voters registered as Democrats and only about 24% registered as Republicans, according to the Public Policy Institute of California. Democrats control all of California's statewide offices and have a supermajority in each chamber of the state legislature. But we have some unusual allies for the Donald. First, from CBS Los Angeles, California's Secretary of State responds to calls to strike Trump from the presidential ballot from Matthew Rodriguez from KCAL News. California's Secretary of State issued a tepid response to the Lieutenant Governor's call to strike the Donald's name from the presidential ballot on Friday. The former president's conduct tainted and continues to sow the public's mistrust in government and the legitimacy of elections. Well, I hate to tell you this, but I had a mistrust for government long before I was even old enough to vote. So it's more critical than ever to safeguard elections in a way that transcends political divisions. Secretary of State Shirley Weber wrote in an open letter to Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis. Weber said she is aware of the landmark decision but preached caution. Removing a candidate from the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is not something my office takes lightly, and is not as simple as the requirement that a person be at least 35 years old to be the president, Weber wrote. Weber did not indicate if she would fulfill Kounalakis' request, claiming the decision to omit or include Trump on the ballot must be grounded firmly in the laws and processes in the state in place in California and our Constitution. Which kind of tells me that she's not going to do it. It kind of tells me that he's going to be on the ballot in California, and he's probably going to win in the primary side of it. He will lose spectacularly in the general, but he's probably going to win in the primary side at least. But another unlikely ally, the LA Times reporting. Gavin Newsom pans talk of banning Trump for the presidential race in California. Gavin Newsom says let him run. Let that sink in for just a second. We'll go through this one and then we will, I'll check in with the chat with you guys again. Jim Rainey, staff writer over at, what did I say this was? Oh, LA Times. Over at the LA Times reporting, many leading California Democrats have been clamoring to jettison Trump from the state's election ballot, but Gavin Newsom has made it clear he is against the move. Bro, there's no doubt that Trump is a threat to our liberties and even to our democracy, which, of course, is code for our hegemony. If a Democrat ever says our democracy, it means our hegemony. Newsom said, but bro, in California, we defeat candidates at the polls. Everything else is a political distraction. I agreed with Nikki Haley last week. And for some reason, I'm agreeing with Gavin Newsom now. But he's absolutely right on this. And this goes, again, as far as to what I said about President Biden. If Biden thought that he could win this fair and square, he would get up to that podium, he'd shuffle up there, and look around to see dead people around him, not know where he is, and then when his CIA drugs kicked in and he remembered where he is, he'd get up to that podium and say, hey man, what was I saying? I don't need the lawfare to beat this turkey, man. He's just a joker. I hereby issue a full pardon to what's that guy's name? I issue a full pardon to Donald Trump, man. Because I don't need him to be taken off the ballot to beat him. I can do it fair and square, man. Come on. But the problem is that he doesn't think he can do it fair and square. And I think most of us are quite aware of the fact that he doesn't think that he can do it fair and square. So, Gavin Newsom has the exact right answer. I think it ultimately backfires and fails on him, but he has got the absolute right answer to this. I can't believe I'm defending this guy. Alright, let's check in with you guys here. Then we're going to do some more ballot access stuff. Like I said, that's the majority of what we have across here. Dual Helix has joined us over on the Rumble side. Hello, Dual Helix. You missed the swatting arguments. I'm going to do a quick recap for Dual Helix. Posobiec got swatted. Marjorie Taylor Greene got swatted. I didn't talk about it at the top of the show, but Cat Turd got swatted. Random Republican representative from New York got swatted, and Styx got swatted. And Merry Christmas to you too, by the way. Over on the main chat, I know it's in the Southern Baptist one that we use. There's a Southern Baptist church in the city. Yeah, it was probably about 1 o'clock Central Time when they got him. Or at least that's when he posted about it. It's in the Discord. Oh, you're not in the Discord. Never mind. Bong says, pretty much can't fathom the idea there be only one hymnal for an entire denomination. Yeah, even Wells has 2 prominent ones, and I know there are like a dozen other smaller ones. But we have 2 prominent ones. I'm a traditional Catholic, and we have dozens, if not hundreds, of different hymnals. And psalters, for that matter. Mogwai says, in Biden voice, hey man, we need to go to the city where Jill, where did they say we need to adore him, man? We need to go to the thing, man. How do we get to the city of Bethlehem? I can't remember, man. I'm gonna go eat ice cream. I like that. I know there are others, but the few I've seen have had the English translated version in it. And who was the one that's attributed to that one? Is that a Reagan quote? The scariest words ever uttered were, we're here from the government and we're here to help. The Lindsey Graham jokes come out. Lindsey Graham got swatted, but it wasn't by the cops and he paid extra for the swatting. Nice. All right, back to ballot access. I still look at this article and can't believe that. I agree with Gavin Newsom. Again, I will give credit where credit's due. He's absolutely right here. It's just hard for me to believe. All right, from Politico in New York. New York Democrats threaten lawsuit to keep Trump off the ballot, which is interesting, aside from this, because, I mean, this is sour grapes, the opposite party. But it was that in California, too. In Colorado, it was at least, quote, Republicans who brought the lawsuit. That's what they claim. I don't believe it, but that's what they claim. Emily No and Nick Reisman, Democratic lawmakers in New York, are not ruling out a lawsuit to block former President Trump from the state's April 2nd primary. State Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Brad Hoylman-Sigal has pressed Republican state election officials to prevent the erstwhile New Yorker from appearing on the ballot. Hoylman-Sigal renewed the call after the Colorado Supreme Court moved to bar the former president. Trump's campaign is expected to appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. New York has to take a stand, as Colorado has already done for the 14th Amendment. Hoylman-Sigal said in an interview, even though he's never read Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, "I'm concerned, as others should be, that if we don't enforce Trump's disqualifications, which he doesn't have because you cannot bring a conviction for insurrection, there's a real danger that he could incite insurrection again. So we do pre-crime." Terrific. New York is among at least 16 states with pending legal challenges that seek to use Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Hoylman-Sigal said he's speaking to attorneys about bringing a separate suit. But the Manhattan Democrat was sanguine when asked about if the mounting legal problems for Trump will only empower the former president with a Republican base. Yes, it will. It's politics, but politics on the part of the candidates, he said. This is a serious constitutional issue that needs to get resolved before New York's presidential primary. It's already been resolved. Let's go back and let's go check out our old friend, the U.S. Constitution in the Bill of Rights. Excuse me. And just a reminder, since we're in here, the full text of the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment of indictment of a grand jury, which nobody has done for insurrection, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, which this is not, or in the militia, which this is not. Let's actually open the rest of this up here because it's going to cut off. Probably partially because they don't want you to see the rest of this. When in actual service in time of war or public danger, which we technically are not. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That's pleading the fifth, by the way. Nor, and this is the important part, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property, liberty including, in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, the ability to run for the office, not to win, but the ability to run for the office, without due process of law, which they have not given, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Yeah, we need to remind our city and local governments of that as well. Also, and this is the new gospel, by the way, for the left, but it's because they've never seen this, because they're told never to look at that, just to look at Section 3. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the U.S., which we need to have a talk about gun control, if that's the case. Nor shall any state deprive any person, nor shall any state, New York, Colorado, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. But none of the people who are citing the 14th Amendment have ever read this part, I'm certain, or if they have, they've tactfully ignored it. So it's not politics on the part of the candidate, and it's already been resolved. And again, if you think that you can go back and get a conviction for insurrection, then bring it forward. I'd be interested to see what it is that you have. I kind of already know that's bupkis, but the Constitution. What is a document written to be the backbone of running the country but hasn't been used since 2020? That's the Jeopardy answer right there. All right, on the RFK side, in Arizona, RFK Jr. draws Biden and Trump voters united by distrust. Yeah, you're still not going to win. But I kind of want to see the people soundly reject you as well, from Jonathan J. Cooper. Some voted for Trump, others for Biden. A few had never wanted anything to do with politics before they heard RFK Jr. in a podcast or a YouTube video. Lined up outside a Phoenix wedding hall, tucked between a freeway, a railroad truck, and a U-Haul rental center, the hundreds of people who turned out Wednesday to hear Kennedy speak shared little in common ideologically. What united them was a deep-seated distrust of the media, of corporations, and especially the government, and a belief that Kennedy is the only person in politics willing to tell them the truth. Clearly not, because he glosses over the fact that he's a miserable gun grabber. I like that he talks to us like adults, said Gilbert Limon, a 40-year-old pharmacist from Phoenix. He tells you the majority of what you need to know, whereas I feel like other politicians just give you bits and pieces to try to fit their agenda. I've had enough of that. Dude, this is a Kennedy you're talking about. Voters are not enthusiastic about a Biden-Trump rematch, and alternatives like Kennedy and the No Labels third-party movement, which would typically be the long shots, see an opening. Kennedy's appearance in the 2024 battleground state highlights how he could influence the election in ways that are tough to predict. Allies of both Trump and Biden have expressed concern that Kennedy's independent bid could pull votes from their candidate in next year's expected general election rematch. This is a TLDR, and I know because we're starting to run up on time, and I do, by the way, want to talk about, and make sure there are people here to talk about it with, the calendar gate when we get down towards things I like and things that I hate. But long story short on this one, people are pissed at Biden and Trump, both, and they think that a Kennedy is the answer. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton has commissioned the Lincoln Motor Company to build a custom convertible for RFK Jr. to campaign in. A railway and a U-Haul center. He could have done that from Myrtle Beach for half the price. On the Nikki Haley ticket, which apparently I have to refresh this one. Yes, I'll fix it next time. Trump asking allies about possibility of Nikki Haley for vice president. From Finn Gomez and Olivia Rinaldi. Former President Trump has been asking allies and advisors for their thoughts about Nikki Haley as a vice presidential candidate. Two sources familiar with the conversation tell CBS News. They're anonymous, of course. I've already determined that I'm not going to vote for Trump, with a possible maybe if he's smart enough to pick Carson. but it's still going to be a hard one for me to do because I know what happens when somebody goes up to him and says, hey, if you don't sign this omnibus bill, your poll numbers might go down. I don't know that I can vote for him again no matter who his vice presidential candidate is, but if it's Nikki Haley, he's fucking dead to me. If it's Haley, he's done. But I don't think he's going to. I think he's smart enough not to do that. I don't attribute a lot of intelligence to Donald Trump. I think he's mostly an egomaniac, being his own ego. But I think he's smart enough to not pick Nikki Haley. His MAGA allies seem to agree with me. Trump is asking allies about Nikki Haley, but his inner circle are fiercely opposed, a report says. Well, he made his entire campaign about being anti-war. Dude, a lot of MAGA turned their backs on him, number one, over Pence, which is understandable. But number two, when he put her into the UN ambassador's role. Many in Trump's inner circle are working to dissuade him from considering the former South Carolina governor, whom they see as part of the political establishment and not aligned with his MAGA base. Yeah, and it has nothing to do at all with the fact that she's a miserable fucking war pig. Even if I was full-on wear the red hat, let's try something different like I was in 2016, if he picked Haley, I would be out. I think Haley would be high on the list for cabinet members, I bet. Yeah, that's another part of the reason that I don't want to vote for him. I think you're right. I think that she would be high on that list. And Politico with the final one on this one. We're just going to gloss over this one because I want to do more on ballot access. In the last few minutes that we have, Trump allies and MAGA luminaries move to kill off the Haley for VP buzz. Good. Kill it with fire. Kill it with fire. Spread dirt over it. Salt the dirt. Where the idea of Nikki Haley for vice president used to be. Get that woman out of politics. Alex Isenstadt and Meredith McGraw, in our brief look into this one, Trump's allies, MAGA media influencers, and even his son are sending the Republican frontrunner a message as he begins to ponder potential vice presidential picks. Don't even think about choosing Haley. The fervent effort to kill off Haley's beat buzz before it truly takes off has come as the former UN ambassador and ex-South Carolina governor is gaining momentum in the primary. It has prompted speculation she'd be a logical choice for a running mate for Trump. Why? She stands for exactly the opposite of everything the movement that you've created stands for. Who has maintained a wide polling lead and remains the strong favorite for the Republican nomination. Her rise has caught the attention of the former president, who has recently quizzed people outside his campaign for their impressions of Haley, according to 3 people familiar with the conversations. Again, I wasn't going to vote for you in the first place, but you've made some decisions that have made me reconsider that briefly, albeit, before I remember, of course, what happens when you're presented with an omnibus bill and an ultimatum about your poll numbers. But if you pick Haley, you're dead to me. Well, they were grooming DeSantis for 2028 as well, and I can't get behind that one either. And I've been in that camp since the COVID lockdowns. Like, my aversion to Ron DeSantis precedes the 2020 election. Not by much, because he hadn't been in office for very much before that. But my aversion for DeSantis precedes that. It's documented. Even when some of my friends still liked him before he showed his true colors. All right. The other also-rans are also running into ballot access problems. Chris Christie won't be on Maine's Republican ballot. Boo-hoo. From Leela Stockley. If you're on the audio platform, you just heard a pause there, and I was rubbing my eyes while I was thinking to myself, boo-hoo-hoo. The rest of you watching this on video already know that. But we do have a Spotify audience. Thank you to you guys, by the way. You guys are true champs. Chris Christie is officially off Maine's ballot following a decision from the state Superior Court judge on Thursday. The presidential hopeful faced an uphill battle to get onto the Republican presidential nomination ballot after Shannon Bellows declared earlier this month that Christie did not have enough voter signatures to qualify for the state ballot. And if you've seen somebody that size that's trying to go uphill, that's like twice the battle the rest of us have going uphill. Christie did not separate petitions forms by towns, as instructed by the secretary, or, in the alternative, give himself sufficient time to bring those multi-town signature sheets to the relevant municipalities before the November 20th deadline, Superior Court Justice Julia M. Lipez said on Thursday, according to a report from CBS News. Dude, put him on the ballot. I just want to see him get crushed. Nah, never mind. He'd get all of his fat all over the fucking place. But regardless, I'm a big advocate of let the people decide. Christie still has time before December 26th to file as a write-in candidate with the Maine Secretary of State's office. Well, good luck. On the Democratic side, first a little bit of cope here, what Biden's rough 2023 in the polls means and doesn't mean for 2024. Mark Murray from NPC News, the different polls agree. President Biden's political standing is lower than Barack Obama's was at this point before his reelection, and even lower than Trump's was a year before his 2020 loss. Last month's national NPC News poll found Biden's approval rating declining to 40%. The lowest mark of his presidency. That compares with Obama's 46 among all adults and Trump's 44 in December 2019. The findings are consistent with other national and battleground state polling that shows Biden's approval rate in the 30s and 40s. What's more, Biden ended the year narrowly trailing Trump in a hypothetical head-to-head matchup in the NPC News poll, albeit within the margin of error, which Obama never did against Romney in the 2012 election cycle. And most concerning of all, the NPC News poll and other surveys indicate Democrat coalition is frayed less than a year before the 2024 general election, with Biden experiencing declining approval ratings, not just among independents, but also among young voters, Latinos, and even black voters. The culprits include inflation and wages not keeping up with prices, concerns about age and fitness, and the Israel-Hamas war, which has resulted in some younger voters turning against him. Democrats cannot generate a national majority without a strong showing of younger voters, Democrat pollster Cornell Belcher said. Still, these strategists and others believe Biden's poll slump, as it stands right now, isn't predictive of what might happen in November's general election, and they pointed to several factors to watch for over the next year that could have impacts on his standing. And one of them, of course, is Trump on the stand. The losing record after Roe, which a lot of states shot their load already on that. I've talked about that in several one-off videos. I don't think that's going to be as big of a deal as they think it's going to be, because they've made the push already in the states that they needed to make the push for. Now they don't have anything to run on. When economic perception catches up to the economic performance. When people start believing the propaganda is what that means. What if views of Biden are locked in? They might be. Look, here's the reality for Biden. With black voters and younger voters, they're going to be using the same rhetoric that they have used for literally decades. A vote for anybody other than Biden is a vote for Trump, which is the end of liberty. And for the black voters, they're going to say that if you don't vote for insert Democrat candidate here, within the next election cycle, slavery will be legal in the U.S. again. They have been doing this since the 60s. And I mean the 1860s, by the way. And it's going to resonate in a lot of places, but when it comes out to the end, it is the economy, stupid. However, there's going to be a strong showing against President Trump because of the wall-to-wall propaganda that they put against him. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in 2024. A lot of people are ready to come back out and just say, all in, he's going to do it, he's going to win because I said so. I'm not as sure. And I haven't been for quite a while. And now let's look at the ballot access on the other side. A brief introduction from ABC. Biden's Democrat challengers hit ballot access roadblocks, from Isabella Murray and Brittany Shepard. Not only are many of President Biden's high-profile Democratic challengers having difficulty making a dent in his national polling, there are two. But they're also running into major snafu in their efforts to replace him getting onto state ballots in the first place. Honkity honk 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 honk. Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson and progressive commentator Cenk Uygur can't be the president. He can't get ballot access because he wasn't born in this country. Have encountered roadblocks in Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Mass, which they allege without evidence have been placed, at least in part, by the National DNC, or even at the behest of the president himself as part of a broader conspiracy between the party elites and state chapters to bend the process in Biden's favor, which is a possibility, by the way. Again, and I talked about this in a solo video, and a one-off video that I made, what was it, like a month ago already at this point? One of the big things coming into election time for Biden, especially around primary time, it's part of the reason they moved the Iowa caucus. I mean, they'll tell you it's because more racism and my black votes first and everything else like that. They moved the Iowa caucus so that Democrats can re-register as Republicans and go vote for DeSantis. That was probably a big part of the reason they did that. But when it comes down to everything else, with all the rhetoric of a vote for Marianne Williamson is a vote for Trump, a vote for Dean Phillips is a vote for Trump in the primaries, what they want to avoid is having Marianne Williams and Dean Phillips appear on the ballot in some of these states. So that there's no reason or need to have a Democratic primary where these people can come again, especially in open primary states, where they can go pick up the Republican ballot because they run both the primaries on the same day, instead of going and picking up the Democrat ballot and voting for Biden, because they have to keep him and his political pulse up. They go pick the Republican ballot up and say, hey, I like Nikki Haley. I promise. I can't cross my fingers on the fly. I like Ron DeSantis. I promise. I like Vivek. I promise. Or even re-registering for a day in some states. Some of the states have more extensive re-registration programs, obviously, but some of them, yeah, you can go re-register for a day. And if Biden doesn't have a challenger, what's to stop them from going and getting those? They're not going to vote down ballot anyway. Let's look at Marianne and Dean. From Politico, Williamson cries foul over ballot access en masse. From Kelly Garrity and Lisa Kaczynski. Marianne Williamson is crying foul after the mass Democrat Party submitted only President Biden's name for the state's Super Tuesday presidential primary ballot. Dem Chair Steve Kerrigan's misplaced attempt at protecting Biden robs mass Democrats of their voice and choice in the upcoming election. Williamson, the long-shot Democratic presidential candidate, wrote in a post on X, "This action is a flagrant violation of the DNC rules and processes. Lady, you weren't going to get there anyway, and I hate to tell you this, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard transcripts of it. Apparently Tim Pool ended any part of your presidential ambitions to begin with, so you might want to just sit this one out at this point." Mass Democrats are the latest in a string of state parties to leave the president's challengers off their list of candidates for the primary ballot in what Biden rivals have decried as an incumbent protection that disenfranchises voters. Yeah, the DNC doesn't care. That's the problem. They already picked who's going to the ballot, who's going to the general in 2024, and it might not be Biden, by the way. I predict there's a 50-50 chance that Biden gets to the convention and says, "Hey, man, I just want to go play with Major in Delaware, man. Hey, all my delegates, go vote for Gavin." I don't think it's going to be Gavin either, but I don't know who they could pick, honestly. But I'm going to use Gavin as a placeholder for this one. I would honestly almost argue there's probably a greater than 50-50 shot that he does that. But then the DNC gets to handpick their successor instead of letting the people choose. They don't give a fuck. The DNC does not give a flying fuck about what the people think. There are other ways to get primary ballot access en masse. Candidates can submit 2,500 nominating signatures to local election officials by Friday, or the Secretary of State can add the candidates who have been recognized by the national media if their party doesn't put their name forward. I'm betting on Biden getting daved if he's elected anyway. I don't know what that means. Daved? Is that something you had to put in to get around the Twitch censors? I don't know what daved is. And Phillips as well, Minnesota Rep. Phillips will challenge states where he missed ballot. Dean Phillips will file challenges with the DNC and several state parties next week after Democrats in Florida, North Carolina, and Tennessee left him and all of the challenges to President Biden off their ballots. Unilaterally taking away the right of rank-and-file Democrats, including a disproportionate number of black voters demanding a more affordable America, is reprehensible. Phillips said in a statement to Semaphore, "If Biden is the best candidate to defeat Trump and lead us to a safer, more affordable future, let him compete for that privilege without his supporters suppressing and disenfranchising millions of voters." I agree with Phillips on this. But just like I said in the Williamson article, the DNC doesn't care. They don't. If they cared, Hillary wouldn't have been allowed anywhere near the primary process in 2016. I wonder if it would be Kamala. "Hey, man, Kamala has served me well, man, for I don't know how long. Hey, all my delegates should go vote for her." Wouldn't that be wild? Because I think they were trying to astroturf her in to begin with. All right, we've got some more political news here. Let's get through the rest of this as best we can. From my neck of the woods. I don't want to know what the end is. Spoilers! Wisconsin Supreme Court orders new legislative maps in redistricting case brought by Democrats. This, by the way, is one of the... I thought they'd go after Act 10 first, but with the primary coming up, I do see where this might be more important to them. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that Protasewicz was honk honk installed into the Supreme Court. From Scott Bauer. The Liberal-controlled Wisconsin Supreme Court overturned Republican-drawn legislative maps on Friday and ordered that new district boundary lines be drawn as Democrats had urged in a redistricting case they hope will weaken GOP majorities. Well, remember, it's only a fair map if every district in the state touches either Milwaukee or Dane counties. I'm trolling, but there are people that actually believe that we should just have 9 legislative Democrat districts. The ruling comes less than a year before the 2024 election in the battleground state, where 4 of the 6 past presidential elections have been decided by fewer than 23,000 votes. And Republicans have built large majorities in the legislature under maps that they drew over a decade ago. The court ruled 4-3 in favor of Democrats who argued that the legislative maps are unconstitutional because district drawings aren't contiguous. New maps are likely to be unveiled in about 2 months. Because the current state legislative district contains separate detached territory, and therefore violate the Constitution's contiguity requirements, we enjoin the Wisconsin Elections Commission from using the current legislative maps in future elections. Jill Karofsky, who was, by the way, the first one that honk honk beat Dan Kelly. Thank you, Bernie Sanders, for staying on the ballot long enough to get progressives out for Karofsky, by the way, in 2020, wrote for the majority. Tony Evers hailed the ruling, saying he looked forward to submitting proposed maps for the court to review. Well, if Tony Evers is doing it, then that might not actually be trolling. It might actually come out to be, hey, they're only fair maps if every district in the state touches either Dane or Milwaukee counties. And I remain as optimistic as ever. At long last, the gerrymandered maps Wisconsinites have endured for years might soon be history, he said. I'm going to gerrymander them my way instead. The gerrymander argument has been the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard in my life. Both parties gerrymander. That's part of the advantage of winning in the state, is that you get to draw the maps. And I will remind you that Illinois is one of the worst gerrymandered maps out there right now. I hear Maryland is pretty bad too, but Illinois is one of the worst. Congressional district map. I know we go through this like every time we talk about this subject. Let's open this up in a new tab too. Yeah, that's a shape that happens in nature right there. And this was all done by Democrats right here in Springfield, which conveniently is in a narrow district that connects St. Louis to Champaign. The party that drew this map right here wants to complain about gerrymandering. Let that sink in. I'm sorry, things that we like. We had to look at maps. Yes, I know. We've got to get down to that. I did get a late start, so we've got some leeway on that. But yes, we are going to get to things I like and things that I hate in just a few minutes here. As far as Wisconsin goes, I don't know where this is going to go. I feel like with Tony Evers submitting the maps, that this is going to be probably pretty close to a 9-0 Democrat majority in the House. It's okay, I didn't want representation anyway. Let's get through a few more of these. The Post-Millennial reports record numbers of migrants are applying for New York City ID cards. Over 112,000 approvals in 2023. So they can't go get an actual immigration case started, so they can do it the legal process, but they can get an ID. A historic amount of migrants applying for ID cards in New York City, which is the first step to becoming official residents. People can get access to ID NYC cards regardless of immigration status. It's not even a state ID either. It's a municipality ID. Whether that be entering the U.S. legally or illegally, the municipal cards are used for personal identification and grant migrants access to healthcare, schools, and other basic necessities. The New York Post obtained data that shows the amount of cards that have been issued increased by nearly 50% in the past year because Abbott started busing migrants up there. Between January 1st and December 15th, 2022, there were 82,085 cards issued. In that same time period this year, there were 112,238 cards issued. But again, I will give some benefit of the doubt to the Adams administration for this because, well, Greg Abbott started busing migrants up there, so that is going to change the way that we look at this. John Schneider is under investigation. Actor John Schneider under Secret Service investigation, according to a report from Christine Samra. The Secret Service is investigating John Schneider's post that he made on social media platform X, formerly Twitter. The post was about President Biden and his son Hunter calling for them to be publicly accosted. With all the swatting going around here, I don't need the FBI coming and busting through my door too. Sorry, John. This all happened on Wednesday, hours after the Dukes of Hazzard star appeared on the Fox singing competition, The Masked Singer. The post has since been taken down, but was obtained by Deadline. I can't read the tweet. Not on YouTube. There's no way. The post was in response to President Biden's post about former President Trump. Hey man, Trump poses many threats to our country, man. The right to choose, civil rights, voting rights, America's standing in the world. We haven't been at war for a while, man. But the greatest threat he poses is to our hegemony. If we lose that, we lose everything. Just good old boys. Never meaning no harm. Beats all you ever saw. Been in trouble with the law since the tweet was born. Yeah, I do have to wonder how it is that they plan to catch him. I mean, I've seen John Schneider outdrive Roscoe Coltrane every day after school on TNN. For most of my early teen years. Alright, I want to just touch on this one last one here. Two last ones here. And then we're going to head out of here. One on the Epstein and then one on Julian Assange. And then we'll look at things I like and things that I hate. So, the one I want to touch on here for Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein scandal, federal judge to unseal 180 previously redacted names. Now, this actually was apt for, I could have put this on either of last week's 2 episodes, but I didn't, for a reason. Because this isn't going to do anything. It's not just going to be, it's going to be associates, victims, investigators, and others who came up in the lawsuit. This isn't going to be your list of everybody who diddled a kid. This might be some of the kids that got diddled, but the rich and the powerful, their names are not going to get out there. No matter how much you want to see them, no matter how much you want to shame them. I mean, we got the flight logs, but the blackmail, the documentation, that's not going to come out here. The rich and the powerful did what they needed to do for a reason. And Epstein totally killed himself. This is not going to go anywhere. And when it does come out, there's going to be some big Trump news somewhere out there that distracts from it anyway. Especially if there are key members of the DNC. They're probably waiting for another indictment. They probably have another indictment sitting here waiting. If not, they're cooking one up right now for this to come out. And again, it's part of the reason that I glossed over it, because this is literally not going to go anywhere. And for Julian Assange, a Spanish company and the CIA found guilty of violating the rights of Julian Assange's visitors. You know, if you just pardoned Assange to begin with, Donald, we wouldn't have to worry about any of this. Jose Maria Irufo reporting. A court in New York has ruled that UC Global and the Central Intelligence Agency violated the constitutional rights and privacy of U.S. citizens when they met with WikiLeaks founder Assange at Ecuador's embassy in London. 4 U.S. citizens, 2 lawyers and 2 journalists, had sued the former CIA Director Pompeo, the CIA, and David Morales, a former Special Forces soldier in the Spanish military who owned a Spanish surveillance firm that was contracted to provide security for the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Judge John G. Keltle's decision acknowledged the violation of the plaintiff's rights by the employees of UC Global, who unlawfully photographed mobile phone passwords and contents when the 4 plaintiffs were visiting Assange in the embassy. However, the judge also ruled that UC Global's recordings of conversations and photographs of passports at the embassy were not illegal because there's no expectation of privacy by the plaintiffs in that embassy, which is considered a public space. You still have the constitutional right to privacy, dude. And what's to stop them from releasing that into this country? But again, I remind you, pardon Assange and a lot of this goes away to begin with. Alright, that's enough of the news for the day. Let's look at the rules of acquisition and things I like and things that I hate. Man, this page looks a lot more compact than the other one here. Alright, first thing is, as we do every week, we look through the Ferengi rules of acquisition. The Ferengi are a hyper-capitalistic society in the fictional Star Trek universe whose religion revolves around following this series of rules that we read one of every week. And if you follow them correctly, or correctly enough, you get to go to the divine treasury at the end of your life and bid on a new life based on the credit you accumulated by following these rules. And if you don't follow these rules, you just take whatever life is left over. We read one of these rules, we look at how they are used in canon if they are, but more importantly how we can use them in real life. Some of them we can, some of them we cannot, because Roddenberry, as I always mention when we go through this segment, was an avowed communist. Alright, we looked at 239th rule of acquisition last week. From body parts, never be afraid to mislabel a product. We have another one. This is from STO, which, I mean, Dual Helix will tell me this is not canon, but we're going to use it anyway. The 240th rule of acquisition, a highly philosophical rule this time through. Time, like latinum, is a highly limited commodity. Now, in continuity, gold had become pretty well worthless because it was you could replicate gold. You could matter resequence and get gold, even though it's elemental. You could matter resequence and get the atoms down from anything that you could get from the reclamator, and get gold out of that. You could replicate gold. You could not replicate latinum. which is why it held value throughout the galaxy, because it was not able to be replicated. But time, as well, is not able to be replicated. You can do just, and this goes back to what I talked about when I said you can't buy fate. You can do everything possible to prepare, to stock your shelves, to set yourself up monetarily, to try to extend the life that you have. But when your time is up, your time is up. Spending a lot more time with my dad because of the family emergency that I've not talked about on stream yet. Because it was one of the first thoughts that the time might be up. And I don't want the time to be up yet. It is a highly limited commodity. It's not infinite, and you can't make more. You have to use what it is that you get. And again, you can do things to try to acquire more, but once it's gone, it's gone. So, that is your rule of acquisition. The Grand Nagus is the greatest Nagus ever. He will be a huge part of my next administration. I don't know if you want to go down that route, Mogwai, because when we stepped away from the Ferengi Society at the end of Deep Space Nine, and I do realize that that was almost 30 years ago at this point, but when we stepped away from Ferengi Society in 1999, our time, the Grand Nagus was Rom, who was a moron. Alright, let's do a couple things that I like and some things that I hate. There are a lot of things that I hate today, including, yes, Calendar Gate. I will be talking about Calendar Gate. In fact, I might go pop over to X real quick and say, I'm about to talk about Calendar Gate because it's about time. We'll throw that up on X right now. See if anybody bites. Alright, things that I like today. Gabby Barrett sparks outrage for saying that she turns down intimate duets with men to not jeopardize her marriage. Absolutely based. I love this. I absolutely love this. Jack Hobbs reporting on this one. Turns out love actually does cost a thing. Gabby Barrett and her husband Cade Fainer. Gabby, why don't you have Cade's last name? Turned down projects they deemed too intimate out of respect for their marriage. I won't get into specific songs, but there's been a large song opportunities that have come in for me to do and add on or be a part of, and something between myself and my husband, and I respect him a ton, and I listen to what he has to say, and I think that he deserves that. Barrett, 23, explained during an appearance on the Unexpected with Hannah Love podcast. And there have been songs that are just not appropriate to sing wording-wise, like these love songs that are really intimate. Based. Absolutely based, 100%. Now, especially if you're in a celebrity marriage, you do have the instance where you've got to take the time and think about what's going to be best for you and what's the best for your marriage. And realistically, you're working. You're not expressing these feelings for these artists. But if that's not something that works in your marriage, then no, you shouldn't do it. And this woman shouldn't get pushback for this. That's the right answer. To do what's best for your marriage. To do what's best between the two of you. I've never said that all marriages should be treated the same. Garth and Trisha Yearwood have made recordings with other artists other than each other. Although some of their best duets are with each other, I will come and completely admit to that. But they have done love songs with other people that I've enjoyed. Very much so. But that works in their marriage. If these two don't want to do that, that is their decision. It's their marriage. It's not your choice in their marriage. This is going to go on to things that I hate too, by the way. I want to go talk about Calendar Gate in a little bit. When you accept a song, there's obligations that go along with it. You could sing in on award shows together. You might be doing interviews together. The I Hope singer said. What does that look like on the stage? What does that dynamic look like? I'm singing with another man. Is that going to make my husband uncomfortable? Probably. So, again, absolutely. If that's not something that works in your marriage, then absolutely 100% don't do it. You're free to take the opportunities. And yeah, you might have to take a pay cut or not be able to get on the big Grammy winning song, but it's the life that you've chosen to build together. I absolutely love that. And I've always been the kind of person too, and I always wondered, like these people who are supposed to be in happy marriages, how they can sing about the heartbreak and the cheating and the everything else like that out there. Tim McGraw was one of the first one. Tim McGraw and Faith Hill were one of the first two that I noticed that on. Speaking of country, I didn't understand how they could make the songs of the heartbreak and everything when they were in such a happy marriage, but apparently they did, and they made a butt ton of money off of it too, so. Other thing that I like, and this is the one of two things that I like, the rest of this is things that I hate. Snake killed by man bite. Yes, you read that correctly. Snake killed by man bite. Motorcyclist savages 10-foot python with his teeth as it attacks him while he was riding on the Philippines. Then locals roast it and eat it. Kill or be killed, man. It's probably not the most graceful way to do it, but kill or be killed, man. A man survived a terrifying python attack by biting the 10-foot snake to death before villagers could feast on its remains. That's right, eat the heart of your enemy. Bull Julio Alaria, 48, was riding his motorcycle through Anticara in Bohol province in the Philippines when his huge snake emerged from the grassland and blocked his path. He stopped and waited for the serpent to pass, but he was shocked when it slithered towards him instead in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The reptile sank its teeth into his arm and wrapped around his waist, trying to constrict him. It bit my hand and I let go of the motorcycle, Alaria told the local media from the hospital bed. Then its tail looped around my waist. It happened so fast. I thought I was going to die if I don't bite back, and I thought that my only chance was to bite his neck, so it would loosen a little bit. Hey, again, it's not graceful, but you won. And you're here to tell the story, so. I think this is awesome. The Mogwai says, oh shit, I was betting Florida, not the Philippines. Nah, that's usually a gator, not a snake. Although there are the pythons that get out there that the reptile keepers can't keep. Let's do a bunch of things that I hate now. Alright, again, from my neck of the woods, this is on the other side of the state from me. Glendale swim instructor sex assault charge dismissed in plea deal. Hans, get the wood chipper. A woman accused of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old child while serving as a Glendale swim instructor reached a plea deal with prosecutors on Wednesday. Breanne Taylor was charged in April 2019 with first-degree sexual assault of a child and resisting obstructing an officer. Court records show she pleaded guilty to the resisting charge, and the prosecutors dismissed the other charge. So she's going to walk away with a fine. And for what? The alleged incident happened in November 2018, a criminal complaint states. Investigators learned a 4-year-old girl, who is now 9, told her mother that Taylor tickled her private parts under her swimsuit during swim lessons. During a forensic interview, the girl told investigators Bree didn't want people to know about the touching. While reviewing Taylor's background, investigators found a report from Madison police. So she moved from Madison to Milwaukee and learned that Taylor was accused of touching a student under the swimsuit during lessons in Madison. The complaint said investigators also learned Taylor had lost jobs because of boundary issues. That's not a boundary issue, that's a crime, dude. With regard to personal space, And Putz over in the Discord actually brought up the dismissal too. And again, I remind you, get the wood chipper. I'm going to skip this one. This one is actually going to hold for a while. But I think that actually might have fit. I looked over that again after the fact, and I think that actually might fit in things that I like. But I want to read that one a little bit more first, because I think I misread that initially. But here's something I definitely hate. Chick-fil-A could be forced to open on Sundays. Newsweek reporting. Defying a decades-long tradition of closure on Sundays, a New York Democrat is trying to make Chick-fil-A... Of course it's a New York Democrat. Chick-fil-A restaurants at the state's rest stops stay open every day of the week. New York Assemblyman Tony Simone has sponsored a bill that would require the fast food restaurants at the rest stops to serve customers on all 7 days. The proposed legislation does not target Chick-fil-A specifically, but would have a profound impact on the company, which has 9 restaurants at the rest stops. If passed, Simone's bill would force Chick-fil-A to keep its rest stop restaurants open on Sunday or shut them down. Well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat that if you push this force, number one, we know that you're doing this to take away access to Chick-fil-A because you know that they're going to shut down, and I don't blame them for shutting down. If you do this now, brick and mortar Chick-fil-A, this only affects what's in a rest stop. But one of the other things that I will point out is this is the government trying to get in between private business deals. The TAs, and this, again, this appears to be only in TA, Travel Centers of America. When the TA came out and said, hey, I want to have a Chick-fil-A in here, can I contract somebody to come in here and put a franchise in? They knew already that they were going to be closed on Sundays. Because everybody in the English-speaking world knows that. You can't go to Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A on a Sunday, which is sometimes hard because that's the only day that I get a chance to do that, on both counts. But this is the Texas legislature, and I think this is going to get shot down anyway, but the Texas legislature trying to wag its dick and say, no religion in my state. You get no day of rest. Which is why this lands on things that I hate. A brief one on this one from the Center Square in Illinois. Landlords required to build EV chargers at renters' request with new Illinois law. Andrew Hensel. Those in the housing industry are weighing on the state's new law that requires landlords to build electric vehicle charging stations into residential buildings upon tenants' request. SB 40 approved earlier this year, and starting on January 1st, the law requires single-family homes and newly constructed residential buildings with parking spaces to provide a conduit allowing EV charging if needed. During fall veto session, the measure was amended to require charging station capabilities for each available parking space. That is going to put a lot of people out of this industry, by the way. Illinois home builder Dean Gravin said changes were made to reduce costs. We have to put in a conduit or a pipe from the breaker box to one location in the garage, Gravin told the Center Square. Teslas take a 240 volt and other cars are 180. If you get the cheapest electric car, you can plug into a 110 outlet. We got away from putting in something expensive that would cost thousands of dollars versus just a conduit system. Now, again, we go out to my good friend, the free market. I am not opposed to landlords going out there on their own expense and even being able to put this, by the way, into their advertising. Hey, progressives, come rent from me. I have an EV charging station in my building. That's a good thing. And that drives innovation because otherwise the people come in and say, hi, do you have an EV charger? Because I need to charge my EV. And then the landlord has to come out and say, well, yes, I do. Come rent from me. Or again, put it in the paper and say, in big bold letters with exclamation points, EV charging station on my building already. again, instead, the government is coming in and getting involved and forcing them to do something that a lot of them are probably going to do on their own because it puts them leaps and bounds ahead of their competitors. I don't agree. I don't want an EV of my own, but I know there are a lot of people that do, that really, really enjoy driving them. I don't know why. And this is a fantastic opportunity for the free market to do what the free market does before government intervention puts small-time landlords out of business. Here's an outlet and an extension cord. Don't stand in water when you're plugging it in. True advice. The perennial lawsuit. Federal court revives lawsuit against Nirvana over 1991 Nevermind Naked Baby album cover. Look, I get that this happened to you. There's Chris and Dave Grohl without a beard, and Kurt, by the way. Look, Spencer rather, I thought it was Shane. Spencer Eldon in the perennial lawsuit, coming out and suing over the fact that Nirvana put him on the cover without his junk being covered up, which I think that they should have covered that up personally. I think that they should have blotted that out, but that they put him on the cover with his junk out. I get that you think that you've somehow been aggrieved, or rather you think you can get a bunch of money off the estate of Kurt Cobain. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, kid, and I said this last year, because this comes up literally every year. Your argument is with your parents. It's not with Nirvana. They were responsible for you at the time. I don't, again, necessarily agree with the choice that they made. But they were your power of attorney at the time when you were an infant. If you want to sue somebody, sue your parents. Meanwhile, you still get the royalties and rights off of every time that album is sold, or a song, now that we are in the digital age, is sold on iTunes. You get royalties for that. And you will for the rest of your life. Take the win, dude. And since we're talking about marriage and we're about to go into the calendar gate, pro tip, if you know a guy who posts a picture like this, you can probably talk their wife into cheating on him. I bet you if she did this willingly, which it looks like she did, then you probably can't. But that's just a horrible take, dude. Come on. Go find a single girl. They're apparently all over the place. Don't take another man's wife. Do I think the joke was in poor taste? Yes. Do I think it's worth ending a marriage and destroying these 3 kids' lives over? No. Fuck yourself. Some pointers that are in here. $5 says it was the mom's idea. It probably was, honestly. My ex was a photographer and I used to help her out. These pics were 9 out of 10 times the wife's idea. So, that is just horrifying. Alright, let's talk about Calendargate. I know I've been promising this out for the entire episode and over on X before the episode started. So, the reason that this is on Things That I Hate is because conservatives, religious conservatives, and libertarians spent all of Christmas Day arguing about this instead of spending time with their families. So we're going to start here. Conservative Dad's ultra-right beer company has decided to put out Real Women of America calendar. Let's read a little bit about this. Conservative Dad's Real Women of America calendar is a celebration of conservative women who are fighting woke extremism to preserve real women. 10% of the sales will be donated to the Riley Gaines Center to protect women's sports from extreme leftist ideology seeking to destroy real women. Now, you'd think that this is actually be something good. Now, just with what's highlighted here, I would honestly probably buy one of these. Probably not put it up. I'm not huge on having swimsuit, and I'm not saying this is a purist either, by the way, because anybody who's known me for longer than 15 minutes knows that I spent most of my 20s being a horrifying womanizer, and I still enjoy women. That's been my hardest vice to break, is women. But I'm not a huge fan of having calendars like this up, just based on principle. But it is going for a good cause, and I might enjoy some of this. Although the names make it kind of cringe too. So, featuring the most beautiful conservative women in America. With a sneak peek, by the way, of some of these out here. Riley Gaines, Dana Lash, Kim Klacik. Actually, she's a pretty good looking woman. Ashley St. Clair, I know that name. I can't place the face right now. Sarah Gonzalez. Okay. Catalina Luff, Brittany Jean, Bethany Bartlett, and Peyton Drew. But the one that drew so much concern was Josie the Redheaded Libertarian. Conservative Dads of America, is that a division of no ma'am? That is a deep cut right there. That is reaching way back. The problem and the argument came over this photo right here of Josie the Redheaded Libertarian. Now, again, I don't enjoy this kind of wall hanging. Personally. If I did, there would be a gigantic poster of Ashley Tisdale behind me right now. But the other end of that is I don't intend to buy this, which is what most of the people who are arguing against this should have just done. This is probably one of the most moderate and modest poses that a pinup girl could do, even though, of course, her hair is not pinned up, so she's not technically a pinup girl, but that's the idea that we're coming from, is the pinup of this. But the argument that came from our friends on the religious right on Christmas is that she's violating the bounds of her marriage. And she's doing it with a cross in the background. That seemed to be the one that got them. The fact that not only just a cross, but an actual crucifix with Christ on it. And again, I remind you, don't buy the goddamn calendar. If you don't want to see this kind of stuff, don't buy the calendar. The thing that gets me about this is the conservative right movement actually figured it out for a while with the Bud Light ban, or I'm sorry, the Bud Light boycott and then the Target boycott, pushing both of them, both companies, to get to desperate measures. Like actually giving away beer just so it wouldn't go bad on the Bud Light case, and Target actually caving in spite of actual bomb threats from leftoids over the fact that they caved. Them caving in on this. Conservative right-wingers, you know how to stage a boycott. And you're actually pretty goddamn good at it. You're very good at it. I was impressed when I saw the Bud Light and the Target boycotts. I was legitimately impressed with you. But you've taken it out of the left, and I do think that some of this was because of agitators. I think that there were some left-wingers who were pissed off at the fact that boycotting became so effective on the right that they came in and started saying, hey, look at what this married woman is doing. Don't you hate this for your conservative movement, even though the word libertarian is right in the bottom? And once we start to get this moralism, this idea, and this complaining across the net over this is the kind of thing that derails an actual effective boycott movement faster than faster than Kid Rock buying Bud Light. And as far as Josie goes, honestly, I'm going to say right off the bat, I haven't cared what Josie has had to say since she joined Vice News. But again, I'm not going to buy the calendar. I don't agree with the messaging behind it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to move on with my day. What Josie did here is between her and her husband. Full stop. You can criticize it if you really feel the need to, but to spend an entire day on Christmas Day on top of that when you should be feasting out with your family and making this the central focus for your entire life, that's the reason that I hate this. Yeah, she does kind of glow. Alright, couple more. Home Alone at 30. Director Chris Columbus talks Trump bullying his way into a cameo and more never-before-told stories. But you knew which one was going to be at the top of this one here, from Jason Garagio. Because it's a year beyond the year 2015, and everything in the world has to be about Trump. There's some moments from movies that will never forever be seared in our minds, and in one of them is an 8-year-old Macaulay Culkin putting his hand on his cheeks and screaming at the top of his lungs. It's also one of many reasons why Home Alone is now a timeless classic. Well, it was also a really good movie, so keep that in mind. I want to get to the Trump one here because that's what they did this one for. Because I did read it in this earlier. Many people thought Angels with Filthy Souls was a real movie. I like that too, by the way. So this is the part that puts this in the things that I hate category. Donald Trump demanded to be in Home Alone 2. Now, they buried this all the way down, even though they put it up on the headline. And they buried it down, too, because anybody who reads this section of this article realizes that, no, Donald Trump negotiated his way into this movie. He didn't demand. He didn't bully. They came to him and said, hey, we want to use your hotel because it's beautiful. And the 80s real estate developer that everyone still loved at the time said, okay, but you gotta let me be in the movie. After the success of Home Alone, you directed the sequel, Home Alone 2. Out of all the sequels that would follow the franchise, this is the most memorable because Trump has a cameo. What do you remember about shooting the cameo? Like most locations in New York, you just pay a fee and you're allowed to shoot in that location. We approached the plaza, which Trump owned at the time, because we wanted to shoot in the lobby. We couldn't rebuild the plaza on a soundstage. Trump said, okay, we paid the fee, but he also said, the only way you use the plaza is if I'm in the movie. Which is tremendous advertising, by the way. Your hotel is going to be in this movie, and you're also selling a brand of yourself. That's negotiations. That's not bullying. So I agreed to put him in the movie, and then we screened it for the first time. The oddest thing happened. People cheered when Trump showed up on the screen. So I said to my editor, leave him in the movie. It's a moment for the audience. But he did bully his way into the movie. Dude, before the escalator, people loved this guy. I've had my disagreements with the Trump presidency, with the campaign, with the current campaign, and yes, with the company that keeps around him. But I will not deny that people loved this guy before he came down the escalator. I sat down after, because I met my third fiance rather, after the Trump presidency had started, and reminded her, because she was very, very liberal. We sat down and watched an episode of Top Gear from 2012, where they were testing out sports cars for Donald Trump. They didn't know it was going to be Donald Trump until the very end, until they got in the boardroom. Everybody loved him until he came down the escalator. What Chris Columbus is trying to do here is revisionist history. and it's wrong. But it's to fill an agenda. And again, they buried this 3/4 of the way down the article, even though it was right up in the headline, because they knew that most of the leftoids were going to look at this. They were going to see the headline and say, Trump is such a bully. And they weren't going to read the rest of the way down in the article. Because ain't nobody got time for that, apparently. Alright, and the last thing that I hate today. Seamus Coughlin on a deleted post, but not a post that got deleted before I could get an image off of it. The deleted post, I'm going to paraphrase because, of course, I didn't get it archived, had said that white Christians are going to react poorly when they find out that Jesus looked like a Judean Jew at the time, basically. And I've got the picture as well. But Seamus of Freedom Tunes, also a member of Vice, by the way, reminding us Christians haven't even remotely cared the other 12 million times we've said Jesus may not be white, but I'm deeply curious how they will react after the 12 million and first time. And the picture that goes around, and I mean, again, we do this intermediately all the time. Like, I got blocked by Lakota Man for pointing out that nobody gave a fuck about this picture. Because that's probably what he looked like. Genetically, we can trace his lineage, which goes back to the Babylonian Empire in the city of Ur, through Abraham, in what is now modern-day Iraq. Yeah, he probably looked like that. It's not outside the realm of possibility. Probably had longer hair, because he was a Nazarene, and I don't believe he was allowed to cut his hair. I'd have to go double check my Bible for that one. So he probably had longer hair than that, but yeah, that's probably what he looks like. Big whoop. He still saved humanity from their sins. And that's the important part of the Christ. A lot of Renaissance artists made him look white. I understand that. A lot of Asian artists make him look white as well. So that's something you can take out of the bank. But it doesn't detract from the message. For God so loved the world that he sent his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. He went through one of the most horrific deaths out there. Nails through his wrists on the cross, humiliated, spat on by the Romans through the Judean legal system. So we can enjoy eternal life with the Father. And that's the message of this. Not some progressive out there who deletes his post after crying or basically getting pointed out that his little crybaby and runs away in fear because he puts something up like this because he wants to go out and call a bunch of people racist. Let's ask Joe. He was there. Hey, Biden, what did Jesus look like? You're old enough for that. I did see a funny meme of a nativity scene with a DeLorean crash through it. And the image from the screen, I don't think there was a caption to it, but the image of December 25th, 0000 on the time circuits. Let's see, you want to go back and see the birth of Christ? Alright, let's get out of here. We got a lot done. We got through, I think, just about everything. There were a couple things that I had to skip over just for time constraints, but... And yes, I do have to go back out and edit the first few minutes of the stream because I am on 3 hours of sleep right now, and yes, I forgot to turn the microphone on for the first cold open. So anybody who sees this on Instagram, by the way, is going to get 2 cold opens because the mic is always on Instagram. So anybody who's seeing the replay and actually made it this far on Instagram, that's why I said it twice. That's why I said the cold open twice. is because on the stream my microphone was off the first time. But for those of you who are listening to this on the audio platform or seeing the next or the re-up on YouTube, you didn't see the first part where the microphone was muted because I edited it out. But yes, I will take full responsibility. I did it. It happened. And with that, let's throw some outro music up. Let's head out of here. Where's my outro music? There it is. Did I not restart? Oh, that's right, I didn't. Because we've done a contemporary since then. Since I restarted for the controller. Alright. Hey, thanks everybody who is checking this out on the replay or live as well. Lot to do here. We're not going to have to do a second episode this week, but start to look for more of those as we go. I'm going to head out of here for the night. We are going to do Final Fantasy X tomorrow night. I fixed the cutscenes. They're fixed. So we're not going to see green screen when we get the cutscenes. That'll be nice. Because one of the more important cutscenes of the whole game is actually about to pop back up. So we've got that. Yeah, that took about 2 minutes to fix once I figured out what it was. And it's a common problem for the PC version. It has to do with NVIDIA higher-end graphics cards and one of the settings that are on there. But we'll talk about that tomorrow night. We'll also do Fallout Friday. On Thursday, I'm going to do a little bit of work around here, so I'm not going to be on stream much, but you can always catch me on the Discord, on X, JEdgar101. You can go check me out there. And I hope to see you guys here next week on Tuesday as we analyze the news of the next 7 days. We'll see what's happening with that, what's happening with Colorado. The other states that are trying to keep Trump off. We'll see what's happening with the district maps. Those will be out here. And we are going to be shifting into Iowa caucus fever coming up here. I'm pretty sure that we're going to do a big segment on the Iowa caucus because that's less than 3 weeks away. So it's going to be a lot of stuff here. We might have to go 2 days, but we will see what happens next week. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.